Do you think that you only vote on the first Tuesday of November? Do you think that all discrimination is bad? Well, you're wrong, and let me tell you why. You vote and you discriminate every single day with perhaps the most powerful voting weapon out there. You have money. Money is what you use to buy stuff. When you buy something, you are essentially voting for that product, saying that it is worth your money. You'd rather have that product than you would have your money. Now, let's think about this. So, there are different products. You go to the store, and in a free market society like the United States of America, there are plenty of options. For example, cell phones. Perhaps you buy an iPhone. Perhaps you buy an Android phone. Maybe you even buy a Windows phone. There are all these options out there so that people can decide which is best. That's why you get the best quality for the lowest price here in the United States of America, because there's competition. If someone decides that an iPhone is too expensive, they will go with an Android. If someone thinks that Android isn't good for them and they'd rather have a higher quality phone, they'll go with an iPhone perhaps. Perhaps if they want a cheap phone that's just cheap and does what they need it to do, they might get a Windows phone. All these options out there, it's all preference, and these companies are struggling with each other to provide the best product for the best price. That is why capitalism is the only way that society can truly get along and exist. Because under communism, there's only one product, it's monopolized by the government, and so you pay a lot for a low quality item. That's why made in China items are usually low quality. Now, perhaps when it comes to buying, it also comes to political issues. For example, I never use Google, although I suppose I'm kind of a hypocrite for saying that since I'm recording this on an Android phone. I don't use Google because they stifle free speech. If you look at the Prager University things with YouTube, they hide conservative articles and results from their search pages to try to keep freedom of speech down there, and they only essentially promote the views they agree with. If Google doesn't agree with you, you get shut up. So, although you could argue that it is their right to turn people down, nobody can argue against the fact that it's bad business practices to be favoring one group of people over another. Just like if I decided to start a restaurant or whatever and only serve black people or only serve people who were not Christian, such like that. That is why voting with your money is important. You vote for the best product for the lowest price. Now, perhaps this comes again, another option is cars. When you go to buy a car, perhaps you consider certain things. You consider comfort, you consider practicality, you consider looks, you consider what you think drives the best. You consider, perhaps if you're a mechanic like me, you consider which one will be the best to work on if you have a problem. I personally own a Pontiac Sunfire because it is a nice little car, very reliable, easy to work on, very cheap to maintain, and it gets me from A to B. Other people might go with a Toyota because they're reliable, they're simple, or they used to be simple anyway, and they don't require a lot of maintenance. So if you're not a car person, a Toyota is great. I've driven plenty of them, and I can tell you that they don't perform nearly as nicely as a Pontiac would, but they're good cars. Anything you choose to buy, you are saying that it is worth your money. And when you do that, you need to consider who's selling the product, is the product any good, and how useful is the product going to be for me? Starting on the third point, how useful is the product going to be to me? You have your money. You can spend your money anywhere you want, but you need to buy something. What do you choose? What's going to be worth the money you're spending? So that's what you need to consider when you're buying a product. Let's think about who's selling the product. For example, I refused to buy a General Motors vehicle after 2009 because of the 2008 bailout that gave them $48 billion to essentially bring their billions and billions of dollars of debt to an even zero. Well, today, General Motors, again, is about $28 billion in debt, and that's counting up fast, and they are expecting another bailout. As everyone's been saying, let's hope that GM doesn't expect another bailout while President Trump is in office, because they probably won't get it. And they shouldn't. But because of those bad business practices and GM essentially stealing from taxpayers in order to stay in business, which of course they didn't pay them back. I mean, if you're going to borrow $48 billion from people who are, involuntarily giving up their money, then I don't see why we don't all own free Chevys by now. It doesn't seem fair to me. But so I refused to buy a General Motors vehicle, 2009 or later, because of that. Now, of course, why are they going into so much debt? Well, it was really the unions that destroyed them. General Motors, although they made some dumb decisions, wasn't really a bad company. The unions destroyed General Motors, which was sad because they made good cars. But unions, shortly after World War II, kept threatening strikes against the auto companies. The auto companies were could either choose to give them the benefits that they knew they couldn't afford, but in order to avoid a strike that would put them out of business, or they could let the union strike for several months, and then they wouldn't be able to produce anything for several months, and that would essentially put them out of business as well. So the unions are what destroyed General Motors. They had these pension plans, they had these Medicare plans, all sorts of plans that they put their retired employees on that they couldn't afford. Also, they kept making expensive vehicles that didn't sell well in the middle of a recession, such as in the 2008 or so with all the rebadged Holdens they were bringing over from Australia, like the Pontiac G8 or the Pontiac GTO. Really it was Pontiac that took down General Motors. The Solstice, cool looking little two-seater little sport car, wasn't very practical and didn't sell well at all. They spent so much money on designing these cool cars during a recession that wouldn't sell because nobody had the money to buy a sporty little car with a lot of power. So they essentially wasted a lot of money that way. And today, they're working on all their electric self-driving cars that are just wasting their money and relying on federal government funds and donations in order to fund it, and they're still going into debt because of it. Yeah, sure, their stocks are soaring right now because of all the advancements they've made, but it doesn't solve the problem that they're still in debt, and they still are expecting the government to bail them out. It's not good. So, every time you buy something at the store, whether it be, a candy bar, whether it be soda, maybe it's a grocery item, maybe it's shampoo, maybe it's a shaver, maybe you're getting something bigger like maybe a computer or a smartphone or a car, you have to consider where your money's going and how you're voting with it, because every time you spend money, you are voting for the product you're buying. My name is Nathan Jones. I'm for Young Constitutionalists, and I thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like, and share this video if you enjoyed it, and be sure to check us out on Facebook under the Young Constitutionalist Party. Thank you for watching.